Tyler, one more question. It would be unfair to anybody else but you. I know you've been tracking all of this, but we saw a headline cross the Bloomberg terminal here a few hours ago about the relationship between the U.S. and Mexico. And Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, said the U.S. is willing to extend the trade deadline for several weeks as conversations continue between the U.S. and Mexico. Of course, a dramatically different story between the U.S. and Canada. Your perspective on sort of the ongoing debate over what these trade deals will look like, given how Canada's now put itself in a position where it is, let's say, far out of favor from President Trump?
Right, actually, when this headline crossed, David, I went back to the first extension we saw, which was August 1st. 90 days would bring us to November 1st, which is why we're seeing this announcement now. And at the time, President Trump had said that Mexico was going to be given preferential treatment because of just how much trade it does with the U.S. Of course, we haven't seen that extended as such to our northern North American neighbors when it comes to Canada. Now, Mexico is currently facing a 25% tariff when it comes to non-USMCA compliant goods. The threat on the table over the summer had been that rate could ratchet up to 30% against Mexico. So we're going to have to see how this unfolds. Important to keep in mind here that the tariffs imposed on Mexico actually aren't imposed under the so-called reciprocal tariff regime through IEEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. The tariffs are imposed through IEEPA, but they're over fentanyl concerns and concerns with the border, and that's why we're watching really closely what sort of concessions could be made there on Mexico's part in a bid to try to make progress to meet President Trump's demands. Now, you mentioned Canada. Of course, we're watching that closely. President Trump declining to tell reporters on Air Force One whether or not this additional 10% tariff will extend to USMCA compliant goods. Of course, there's a 35% tariff on non-USMCA compliant goods currently in place, but David, that does not extend to some of those sector-specific tariffs. There's a whopping 50% tariff on Canadian steel and aluminum, which we know is a big point of contention between the two economies.